The ancient sport of chess is about to change. Forever. Welcome to the highest stakes chess tournament in history, featuring the game's most talented grandmasters and a large pool of players from around the world, all playing for $1 million purse. Welcome to the first ever Millionaire Chess Open from the main ballroom of Planet Hollywood on the Las Vegas Strip. Chess will never be the same.
Let's get this party started. It is Friday night here in Las Vegas, and we have over 550 players here in the ballroom of Planet Hollywood. I am live here with my co-host, Grandmaster Robert Hess. My name is Ariane Kawili. We had such an exciting morning today with so many upsets in round 3. Robert, how would you sum up this morning?
Well, it was a really exciting day to begin with. You start with 21 undefeated players in the open section. We now have only 5. The hero of the round, Jeffrey Xiong. He upset a high-rated opponent and now gets to face Wesley So. What more is there to ask for?
After such a tumultuous morning, let's have a look at the standings after round 3. And here we go, 5 players on a perfect score. 3 out of 3. Yang Yiyu from China, the young protege, the hero of the last Olympiad where China won gold. Jeffrey Xiong, young American protege, upsetting every grandmaster in his path. Alexander Lenderman, Magevelashvili from Georgia, and Carlos Matamoros, all on a perfect score. Let's have a look at the matchups for tonight, round 4. Wow, we have a lot of big games here, all of the leaders playing each other. We have Wesley So versus Jeffrey Xiong, Carlos Matamoros versus Lenderman, Yang Yiyu versus the Georgian Grandmaster. These are some pretty crazy matchups. Over to you, Lawrence. What do you think what's going to happen tonight?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen later. Who knows? It's Friday night in Vegas and I'm feeling a bit freaky. Now, that's a joke. But if we're talking about the chess, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. If we're going to go back to the round earlier today, story of the day, Jeffrey Xiong, we can see him on the left there with the hoodie on, not a care in the world. This is the last 30-odd seconds of the game. He's so eager to make the move and suddenly, bang! There he goes, knight a7 check. Beautiful little combination. Rook takes a7, and then he finishes off the game, seen it all, calculated all, rook d8 check, and that was that. There's nothing that Grandmaster Zhao could do. So that means that the 14-year-old, the runner-up in the World Youth Championships a few years ago, a clear talent, won the game. Brilliant result for him, means that he's on a perfect score, 3 out of 3.
Well, Lawrence, it looks like...
It does, yeah, it's going to be, we're just going to go quickly through the big matchup of this round. And of course, what else but Wesley So, the #1 seed who dropped half a point. Well, he's got the pleasure of playing, well, it might not be a pleasure. He's got the task of playing young Jeffrey Xiong. We can see their second place in World Youth Championship 2010, the US Under-12 Invitational Championship as well, Invitational Champion, I should say, against Wesley So, by far the top seed, now in the world's elite, and the game is in progress. We've got a shot of them right there. Jeffrey Xiong with black, and we're going to get into the action very, very shortly, but we can see 2 very young, very promising US talents right in front of us right there.
Well, Lawrence, it looks like it's going to be a thriller of a night here in Las Vegas, especially that game between Wesley So and the young protege who seems to be upsetting every grandmaster in his path. But before we go to him, let's have a listen to what Alexandra, our MC correspondent, has to say.
Thanks, Ariane. It is Friday night, and it's round 4 of day 2. I want to check out the party inside this. Not really a party. They're actually quite have their game faces on as they still have a chance to win the pool of $1 million. Still can hear a pin drop in there. Very, very serious. What's not serious, though, is some of the behind the scenes of Millionaire Chess. That's why I started to dedicate the next few hours to show you the master control, the MC app on the smartphones, and all the things that we've done and that show you the behind the scenes stuff that you don't get to see in the live stream broadcast, and make this Friday night a bit of a party. Right, Ariane? Back to you.
Thanks, Alexandra. We're going to go straight into the games, especially Wesley So versus Jeffrey Song. But before I take you there, I just want to remind you all to join us on the Twitter sphere, hashtag Millionaire Chess. Don't forget to go there. Give us your comments. We're going to put them up on the screen. Make them interesting. Make them funny. It's Friday night. It's time to have fun and get into some deep chess. Robert, let's start us off here with Wesley So's game.
Yeah, definitely, Ariane. We have Wesley So's white against Jeffrey Zhang. And so far, Wesley has won a pawn. Normally that's great, but with so few pieces on the board, it might not be enough for victory. If we go a little deeper into the position at hand, Jeffrey has just gone pawn to f6, attacking the knight on g5. Now, Wesley has a few options. One is to capture his pawn h7, which at first looks like it gobbles up a free pawn, but the knight will get trapped there. Much better is probably this move pawn to b3. The idea, you can't take the knight on g5, because then I'll take your rook on a4. Not a good trade-off. The rook moves to a3. Now we can throw in the move rook e1 check first, but perhaps even better is just simple retreat knight to f3. The idea for white is to remove this rook on a3, bring the king towards the center, and from there, try to make use of the extra pawn. It's going to be a long battle ahead, but I think Wesley So will be up to the task.
I would say, Robert, that Wesley should be quite happy with this position. I mean, he's with the white pieces. He's slightly better, and he's going to play it through right to the end. He's a pawn up. But how convertible, in practical terms, do you think this pawn up is for Wesley?
Oh, it's definitely has a high percentage of converting this into a victory. He's the stronger player, and as we saw earlier in the tournament when he played Alexander Ivanov, he outplayed him in a not as big advantage as he has in this game. So he's very capable, and we've talked about the Magnus Carlsen-like style. He slowly builds up that pressure, and he kind of attacks like a snake and just grabs at you. So I think Wesley So will take this game, and the statistics seem to back that up.
That's right. It's going to be a long one, so we're going to go back to this. Let's have a look at maybe Yu Yangyi versus the Georgian Grandmaster. Yu Yangyi, the very strong, young, very young protege from China, recently the stellar performer of the Chinese Olympic team who won gold in the recent Olympiad this year, the Chess Olympiad in Tromsø, Norway. How is he going?
Oh, he's playing excellent chess this tournament, and right now he's got a great position. His opponent just captured on e5, and if we just look, take a preliminary look at this position, you see this bishop on f8 has no moves. The rook on h8 and the king on e8 are not coordinated. We like to castle our king. So simply taking back on e5 looks like the best option, and I think the f-pawn makes sense. And there's a big problem for black's development. Knight f5 looks very natural, attacking the bishop on e3, putting pressure on the center. However, after the move bishop f2, you want to develop with bishop e7, but it runs immediately into the trap g4, and this knight has no home. So development is not so easy for black, which makes it seem like white's spatial advantage is really coming through right now.
Robert, this looks like the kind of position that you would end up with after some very long, home-cooked-up preparation, especially, I'm being conscious of the time difference here. Maybe it's not that substantial, but there is a time difference between 45 minutes for black and an hour and 10 minutes for white. Can we go back a few moves and have a look at how Yang Yu achieved this position?
Yeah, it started off in a Caro-Kann defense by black, and he simply played very aggressive chess, which we've seen throughout the event. He moved his pawn to h4 and showed no mercy whatsoever. He's pushing all of his pawns. He does not have any regard for a potential counterattack. So he just kept going. There's no stopping him. And after a couple pawn moves, he gained a huge spatial advantage. Black tried to develop, but the bishop, as we see, remains on f8 with nowhere to go. The knight, again, wants to come to this f5 square, but Yu Yangyi did an excellent job of preventing it to come there. Again, the same trap happens if knight f5, bishop f2, and the normal-looking bishop e7 runs into the same g4, and the knight has no option. So, unfortunately for Margvelashvili, he tried, but the space just kept growing. And he traded off pieces on the queen side. We know that you hope to trade off pieces and try to achieve a draw when you have a tough position, but it's not to be. I think he's going to go down, and Yu Yangyi will go on to 4-0.
Right, and with that, let's go to the last pair of people who are on a perfect score. We have Lenderman, Alexander Lenderman, playing the black pieces, young American player, recent very good success in the U.S. Championships this year, versus Grandmaster Matamoros. Let's have a look at that game.
Yeah, Lenderman looks very calm on screen, but so does Matamoros, and the position warrants that reaction from both of them. Carlos Matamoros has just captured the knight on d4, and the idea is if rook takes d2, it looks like you win the piece because the queen is under attack. However, you have this sneaky trick, queen to c1. And, well, perhaps this knight is en prise with pawn takes d4, but there's the intermediate move, pawn to f4, attacking the queen, stopping the queen from protecting this rook on d2, and now I'm going to gobble it up next move. So the material will stay balanced, and that leaves both of them fighting chance in this game.
That seems like a very dynamic game to join in after a few moves. Some very interesting games in the first top 3 boards with, well, 5 players on 3 out of 3. Of course, they're going to try and push for the point, but as we've seen in the last round, if you push a bit too much, if you take too much risk, there's going to be some downside to that. Lawrence, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. We all know what it's like to gamble here in Las Vegas. I certainly do. Might not do any tonight after the broadcast. It's a bit late. But if you're going to win this tournament, you do need to play a bit more aggressively. I personally like how in this position Lenderman is trying to push with black. I think Matamoros has found a way, though, just to keep the balance. After rook takes d2, which has happened, he actually played the other move, queen to e1, same idea, meaning that you can't take this knight, e takes d4, because of f4, blocking the protection of the rook, and that will fall. So you can't do that. So after queen e1, rook takes d3, but maybe this is a bit tricky, because now, after the knight moves, you have to move it, knight takes c6, and now the simple d takes c4. Lenderman is really the one in control, and that's why I said I liked how he plays. He's got an extra pawn in the position, this pawn on c4, and white's going to have a bit of a task rounding that up. So at the moment, Alex must be very pleased with his position. In the other games as well, if we just quickly go back, we have had a move on Yu Yang Yi's board against Georg Magvashvili, excuse me for the pronunciation there. He played the move knight takes e5. We weren't really expecting that. I was of the same opinion here with Robert that f takes e5 might be a good move. It looks more natural, but he played knight takes e5. Maybe it doesn't make so much of a difference. But what Robert said before about the space advantage, the fact that black is having real difficulty developing his pieces on the king's side, I really don't like it, and I think that Yu is a big favourite in the position. Still some work to do, but if I could take anybody, it's white. And then key game of the round, the game that everybody certainly here in the US is watching, Wesley So against Jeffrey Zhang, the 2 young talents, prodigies. He did, in fact, play the move pawn to b3, which is an excellent move, just hitting that rook, gaining a bit of time. And again, Jeffrey with all to do. I was quite surprised, I have to say, by Jeffrey's opening. We won't delve into it too much, but it's an opening that is renowned to be one where black can only play for 2 results. If I was Jeffrey, I think I would have played really aggressively, just said to Wesley, hey, I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to try my best. We can see him there. I've got no fear. I'm from Brooklyn. You know, bring it. And unfortunately, he played this opening where he's going to be struggling against a player who is much better. So I think with experience, he'd try something else in the future. But he's still got drawing chances. It's not over yet, but you have to say that with Wesley's technique and his ability that he is big favourite.
I've got to agree with you, Lawrence. If I was Jeffrey, I would have taken a bit of a risk, especially taking into account Wesley So's very solid play and preference for these kind of positions. What do you say, Robert?
Well, seeing that he's from Texas, actually, he's probably going for a little bit of a duel here.
Oh, I got him mixed up with just... I apologize. Apologize, everybody. I thought he was from Brook. Why did I say Brook? It was Justice Williams. I'm getting confused. All these young guys beating everybody, you know? I'm just really apologize. Apologies, all you Texan guys. I know you love him.
That's all right, Lawrence. We forgive you. It's Friday night here in Vegas. Anything can happen. And when I say anything, I mean even the guys not on a perfect score can start taking the lead here. Anything can happen. It's nearly the middle of the tournament. Let's have a look at our second seed, Bu Shangji, one of the youngest grandmasters in history. Today, he is playing a superstar from Iran, a native of Iran, who in his country is a very famous sportsman and respected as such. So how is he playing against the young Chinese grandmaster?
Well, I think black has got the advantage here, which is a complete surprise. Going into this matchup, I anticipated Bu to get an edge and really play for a win. He's 2.5 out of 3, and as we noted earlier, there are only 5 people with 3-0, so it's time to catch up. However, Black has been outplaying White from the very beginning. A few moves earlier, it looked like White had some opportunity to seize an initiative, but Black was playing exceptional chess. And if we look at the position at hand, the rook on d7 is on pre, so you have to do something about that. If you double the rooks on the d file, it's not looking particularly good. First off, this pawn will eventually be hanging. Second of all, you might even consider taking this rook on d1 and then getting 2 rooks for the queen. I don't think that's a necessary step to take given the position, but you always have to keep it in mind. After a move like rook d1, again, this pawn on b2 is hanging, so that's now a possibility. And he moved. He went rook takes, instead of rook fd1, he went rook takes d8, and I'm anticipating the move rook takes d8 to follow, and it's very clear that Black has an advantage. This bishop on g7 is looming. The knight is trying to come into d4, and this pawn on a4 and pawn on b2 are both hanging. So it's very clear to me that Ehsan Gaya Megami has an advantage in this game, and I would not be surprised if he comes through.
Yeah, I think that Bu Shangji, you know, this kind of thing, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm guessing that this has come from a kind of a reti opening kind of position. And you know, that's right, he played knight f3, c5, g3, knight c6 in the beginning. These kind of positions, as far as I know, grandmasters play this when they're not exactly well prepared. And the problem with it is that you always want to try and get an advantage with White, but when you play these kind of positions, the advantage is so small that if you don't play accurately, you lose it quite quickly. And as a grandmaster playing with the white pieces, you just feel, okay, I need to get the initiative with White. And it's so easy to lose that when you don't play the main lines. And I think that this is what's happened here. He started off with a ready, probably not enough time to prepare before the 4th round, seeing that here in Vegas we have 2 rounds a day. And he's just slowly kind of lost the initiative, really, and not played accurately. And in that case, of course, the Iranian grandmaster is going to take advantage of that and start playing, well, firstly for equality with the black pieces, and then starting to play a game, which is what we see now.
Yeah, and they say if you don't use it, you lose it. So if he doesn't use the advantage of having the white pieces, as we see in this game in the given position, he's in this position, which is the game, he's lost it. And as the statistic shows here, the probability of Bu winning this game right now is only 20%, and that's saying a lot considering he's the much higher rated player.
Lawrence.
Yeah, well, in that position, black certainly is for choice. I think white should be looking at bailout opportunities. Not from an economic sense. We've already had a number of those in Europe over the past few years. But just on the board, needs to get the queens off and try to enter an endgame where perhaps there are opposite coloured bishops, reduce material with greater drawing chances. In other news, though, I've been looking through the games and we have had a couple of results already. First and foremost, Sabino Brunello, the Italian Grandmaster, has drawn against Yevgeny Naya. Really, I would not like to review that game because it's late at night and I don't want you guys to fall asleep. It was dull, it was dreary. A draw's the right result, but we're not going to take your time looking at that one. We'll just accept that was a draw. We have had another result as well. We had him in here a bit earlier today. Alejandro Ramirez, the Costa Rican-born, now playing for the United States. He drew against Rauf Mamedov, the young Azerbaijani player, very tactical. Azeri, I beg your pardon. I can hear voices out of my head. I think it's just people talking to me there. And that was a draw. Looks like it was a pretty standard draw, equal material, rook ending, and they thought, why am I going to waste my night here in Vegas in Friday just trying to make something happen when realistically I'm going to draw all of the time. So that's been a draw. 2 results so far. All of the other big games in play. Can't wait to see how it all pans out.
Thanks, Lawrence, for that insight. You know what I think, Robert? These grandmasters, the top guys at least, they're on cruise control. They're thinking to themselves, hey, look, there aren't that many people on a perfect score. It's almost the middle of the tournament. Let's just chill out, save our energy. And the reason I say that, we've already had a very quick draw, as Lawrence has pointed out. Brunello Nair and Mamedov Ramirez, who we saw earlier. I mean, we could say, more or less, these are quite quick draws.
Yeah,
What do you think? Do you think they're just on cruise control? They're just chilling out?
I really don't think they're on cruise control. The problem is when you play Grandmaster against Grandmaster, there's a great opportunity for them to make a draw, especially when they're relatively the same level. In these two games, we did see a little bit of a fight, maybe not the most fighting games. They're tired. It's the 4th round. They've been playing 2 games a day. But going forward, they need that energy, like you said. They need to conserve their energy so in future games, they're well-rested, they have a fighting mentality, and they're ready to pounce on their opponent. And yeah, I mean, it's hard.
But Robert, when you say this is a bit dangerous, I mean, especially when you have someone, for example, like Wesley So in the field, or even, Alexander Linderman, these guys, they're playing for a win every round, and isn't it a bit dangerous to just let somebody go straight for the wins and you're just cruising there for a draw, holding with black, playing for a draw with white?
Well, the danger of playing for a win is you're also playing for a loss. Because when you have that mindset of trying to win every game, you sometimes lose objectivity. I don't think Alexander Linderman is the person who does that, but some players do. However, again, it's hard to say that they're on cruise control. They're trying to cruise through to the Millionaire Monday, but I don't think right now they're trying to make draws. Just unfortunately for the players with the white pieces trying to gain advantage, they're not doing so. But I mean, we do have plenty of interesting games, and everyone's trying. Everyone wants to be there.
Absolutely, Robert. Everybody wants to make it to Millionaire Monday, but I guess it's up to you, your strategy. Go on cruise control or go for the win every time. Lawrence.
Yeah, well, I said a few rounds ago that I had a bit of a favorite for the tournament, and he's doing the business today, Yu Yangyi. I can see him fighting out in Millionaire Monday. He's got this position against Margarishvili, and a bit like Black's position, and a bit like Jin, I dislike it immensely. He's just played the move Knight C8. It's quite a passive move. And here, if we look at what's going on, all white needs to do now is attack this E6 pawn. Very simple chess. You just move your bishop to G4, attacking this guy. Let's say this other bishop comes to G8 to defend. You've got a number of moves here with white. I just like castling, which occupies the open F file, means that black is going to have trouble. And if he moves something like bishop E7, standard developing move, now I like the move either queen A6 or even queen A8, just pinning black up, totally tying him up. And white can just increase the pressure so easily. He's got the move rook over to B1, right the way down the back, either to B7 or B8. I think from a practical perspective, actually, this position is totally busted. Black hasn't got any counterplay. White's the one in control, and black's the one with all the weaknesses. So if I had any money left, which I didn't spend during the break, I would punt it all on Yu Yangyi.
Lawrence, I have to agree with you. Even looking at the time difference, Yu Yangyi has about double the time as the Georgian Grandmaster and pretty much double the space. But for now, enough for the youngsters. Let's go to let's say the veterans of the tournament. Can't really call them veterans, people in the 30s, 40s, slightly older. For example, Varu Jacobian versus Gregory Kaidanov, one of the most experienced tournament players in this tournament. He has won several tournaments in the U.S., all of the main opens. Gregory Kaidanov, I would say, probably with Ivanov, is one of the most experienced here. How are they playing?
Well, we just got a shout out of Kobe and picking his nose, so I had to laugh at that for a second. But Gregory Kaidanov is incredibly experienced. He is a fighter. He has played in many United States championships, and he's ready to take Kobe out of this game. Already, Kaidanov has a huge advantage.
Hang on, Robert. Take him out of this game? Is it that bad?
It does not look particularly good. This D6 square is an incredible weakness. The idea is that this knight on F5 will eventually occupy that square, and I can't even think of a great suggestion for black. If you try to kick the knight out for G6, you're only making your dark squares weaker around the king on G7 and H6. Instead of G6, if you try to maybe move your rook to E6, now I just simply bring my other knight into the game. Knight E2, the idea is to go knight F4 and get rid of the dark square bishop, putting further pressure on the weak black dark squares. And I just really think Kaidanov is really happy about his position. We talked to him after round 1. He's here to fight. He's here to play for the prize. He's doing well.
My guess, Robert, is that this came from some sort of Slav opening, but the queen on H3 is completely wonky, which is why I can't completely agree with black's position here. I'm not quite sure what the Armenian-born American Grandmaster thought with this opening preparation. Can we go back a few moves?
Yeah, we definitely can. I mean, if we just go back a number of moves, it started from a relatively normal position. And from here, all went downhill for Varouj and Akobian. Simple chess. He castled, but white just had the initiative very early on. He released the tension very soon with this move, pawn takes e4. When I say release the tension, these pawns are hitting each other, but neither one is hanging. So you can leave it there for a little bit. Instead, by releasing the tension in the center, he allowed white to activate his rooks in the open file very easily. He went queen on h5. But realistically, it doesn't do anything. It makes the queen out of play, as you mentioned, Ariane. And from here, it's smooth sailing. Now the f5 square is weak, and here we have the game. And like I said, that d6 square is looking awfully yummy. The knight's trying to jump in there.
That looks pretty crazy to me. And I think that probably Kaidanov, he's using his experience here. He's slightly older than Varouj, and he might be on his way to 3.5.
Yeah, he would get 3.5 out of 4 with a win.
Let's work our way down from the standings to the next board. I think it's Sabino Brunello, who Lawrence just covered recently. Let's have a look back at their game.
Well, they've already drawn, Ariane. I just don't want to bore all of our viewers. Unfortunately, it was a really dull experience. And, you know, it's wrong to... If it were Monday, I'd consider it because, you know, we all come home from work, we're tired, it's Monday, we're all dreading it, got up, you know, sat at the computer all day, regretted every moment. No, not me, I'm talking about what I used to do. Maybe then on the Monday, but it's Friday night. I want to feel funny and freaky and fantastic, and I don't want to dim the mood. So we're not going to go over that game, but maybe... Perhaps Ariane and Robert, we could go to the board next to them and have a look at Mr. Sam Shankland against Ruben Falgao. What do you think about this game, guys?
Well, off the bat, it looks like Sam Shankland's up a clear pawn. We see that that black has 5, white has 6. But there is some pressure. We see the bishop and queen trying to barrel down on this pawn on e3. However, it's hard to move this knight from d4. It's a great blockading piece. If you try to make it move rook to b4 to put further pressure on the knight on d4, at some point, I think that rook will just simply be kicked. You could start with the move knight to c2 to remove it from the game, but you can also simply make the move a3. And from here, I just don't see how black is going to get enough counterplay to compensate for the pawn deficit.
You know what, guys? I've got to say, enough talk about the boys in this tournament. This tournament and chess in general is also about beauty and brains. So we have a very young, I think, woman international master, Alisa Melechina, a very young, intelligent law student and ballerina and brilliant chess player. Alexandra, over to you.
Thanks, Ariane. And just like you, Ariane, the brains and beauty combination of chess, intelligence, with the looks to back it. We did have a chance to sit down with Alisa before all the action happened in Millionaire Chess. I trapped her in an interview room and started to pick apart what inspires her to be the player that she is, why she's at Millionaire Chess, and just her overall thoughts before her games started. Let's have a look.
FM Alisa Melechina. I am originally from Philadelphia. I learned to play chess when I was 5 years old. My dad taught me. Played in my first tournament when I was 7 and have been playing ever since. And I will be moving to New York a week after this event. This is my last tournament before I start working as a lawyer at a law firm in Manhattan, so I am ready to give it my all. When you're a female player, you can't get away from the stereotype that you're the woman, and you definitely get unwanted attention because of that. And over the years, I've gotten used to it. I think it's instilled a more competitiveness in me, and I've been able to apply that to other aspects. I've always been very driven, so I definitely thrive in this environment. But the good thing about chess is that the results speak for themselves. So if I beat someone over the board, then that's that, and no one can say anything else. Well, I think initiatives like Millionaire Chess will help get it to the mainstream, and that will attract a broader audience to it, including women, and we definitely need more women playing chess. They do tend to drop out, and the numbers are small, so I think events like this showcasing chess as something that can be glamorous and luxurious will definitely help bring in more appeal. And if I can help be a part of that, then I'm excited. It's all about inspiring other women to take on the game, but not just chess, to also pursue their passions outside of chess. So I've managed to balance law school and chess and dance, and I want women to know that no matter what else you're balancing, it's possible to do it all. So even though I'll be practicing full-time as a lawyer, working crazy hours, I'm sure I'll still find a way to remain involved. Even if I can't be as competitive as I used to be, there's so many more ways to get involved now, especially with chess journalism and just staying involved through teaching. So I'll definitely be around.
You know, I really love the brains and beauty combination with chess. It's such a male-driven sport. Working with Ariane, gorgeous to look at, and the intelligence to back it, as well as Elisa. Elisa had a tough day yesterday at round 1 and 2. Round 3 was awesome, and I did catch up with her in between the rounds, and we'll see her later in the show about that interview. But back to the beautiful Ariane.
Miss Melakina there showing us that brains and beauty are compatible, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think we need more women in chess. Robert, how can we promote more women in chess? Because the problem is that people put you into boxes. If you're pretty, it's like, well, how can you be smart? And if you're smart, how can you be pretty? Totally disagree with that. Women in chess prove that it is possible to have both. Robert, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to have both. And it's, you know, the problem is when we start putting labels on the people, when we start talking about how they look, how they think.
That's right.
If we're talking about a game of chess, we should just talk about the moves they make on the board, how well they play. I know at Yale I work with Yuan-Ling Yuan, who's the top female player from Canada, and you know, to me she's just a great chess player. It doesn't matter what her gender is. So I think if we stick to that model, we can have more females enter the game, and it'll be a great success for chess overall. That's
right. I think we should stop objectifying women in the game of chess and look at the results, because chess is a beautiful game and there is no hypocrisy on the chessboard. There's always a result and there's always an objective evaluation. So let's not get away from that. And let's remember we have some extremely strong women at the Millionaire Chess Open playing with the males, fighting every round to play for that prize money. Now, Lawrence, what game have you got for us next?
Well, there's a few interesting games going on at the moment. We haven't quite gotten through the field yet. Perhaps we can point out one or two that have caught my eye. If we go to Ray Robson playing against Christian Carilla, who's studying, I believe, at UTD Dallas, playing the young phenom Ray Robson. This is a position as it stands on the board. Ray has just played the move Rook A B8, and I quite like his position actually. We've got a middle game where we've got a typical imbalance in the position. We've got a bishop versus a knight scenario. Sometimes the bishop is better, sometimes the knight is better. In this particular position, for me, the knight is better because this bishop is blocked in by its own pawns. The pawn here on d5, the pawn here on g2. It's a bit passive. Bishops like open diagonals, whereas the knight can do a really good job of hopping into e5 very shortly, can just come here, and then it can come to c4, it can threaten this bishop, and I just don't know where this guy is going. Not only that, he's got a nice little formation on the queen side. I think if I could take anybody, it would be black in this particular position. And there we have a shot of Ray just walking around the tournament hall, hands behind the back. Remember, when these guys walk around, it's not that they switch off. They are thinking about their position. These top grandmasters, top players in the tournament, they can memorize their position. They can analyze their position without being at the board. They don't need to look at the pieces. In fact, there are even some grandmasters who prefer not to look at the board because they get put off and prefer to analyze the position in their heads. And they can even multitask. Believe it or not, yes, men of the 21st century, we can do more than one thing at once, chess players especially. And Ray, he can look at another game whilst thinking about his own game, just relax, get some blood flowing to the body, and he'll be back. And he's got good chances to make some progress in that one.
Yes, definitely. I think that black certainly has some chances here. Knight versus bishop in a probably favorable for black position. But you know what? We've been talking about the juniors pretty much, what, 80% of the time, Robert? Yep. Let's have a look at some veterans of the game. And when I say veterans, I don't mean just in age. I mean in consistently, over the past 10 years, 15 years, winning tournaments in the US. We have a fantastic matchup. On board 12, Alexei Drev versus Alexander Shabalov, two absolute veterans of the game, especially when it comes to US chess. How are they doing? How is this matchup of titans working out?
Well, not only is it a matchup of titans, a clash of style. Alexander Shabalov is one of the most dynamic players you'll ever see. He's the kind of guy like DeAndre Jordan wants to slam dunk in your face every single time. Alexei Drev is kind of your slow, positional player who wants to grind you down. And in this game, we see that Shabalov is down a pawn. He's given a pawn but has counterplay. I think that his knight can jump into d4 in this given position, but I'm a little concerned about his king. His king is not incredibly safe due to the fact that he's pushed his pawn to g6. He doesn't have the f pawn. In chess, the pawn on f7 or f2, we consider it the golden pawn because it always defends your king. Here, that pawn is removed, and I think with the extra pawn and the weak black king, Alexei Drev is in the driver's seat.
Yes, well, when you talk about the golden pawn, Drev was part of the golden Russian team in the 90s, winning the Olympic medal with Kasparov there on the Russian Olympic team. But, you know, he's up against who they call the king of the opens, Shabalov. And it looks like in this case, the king of the opens is in a little bit of trouble. But to be honest with you, this position to me is really complicated. It's
very complicated. It looks like Magnus Carlsen has his back. I see him in the background over there. And if he can channel his inner Magnus, he's good fighting chance in this game. You know, he's a multi-time U.S. champion. He's been at the pinnacle of, you know, the U.S. scene. So I think that he does have a chance in this event, but right now I would have to favor Alexei Drev.
Yes, well, pawn up and two bishops, it's hard not to.
Definitely.
What are some other key matchups we can have a look at this point in time of the Millionaire Chess Open? It's round 4. It's Friday night here in Las Vegas. Let's get this party started or keep going. What's the next game?
Well, the next board looks like the next game. I think it's a great one between Lequang Liem and Gudmundur Kjartansson. Lequang Liem with black, he lost that game in round 2 last night. He clearly is not a big fan of the double round night games. He blundered terribly. But right now he looks like he's getting back on track. He has 2 rooks against a rook and bishop. And while this bishop is very strong in the diagonal, it's just not enough. This pawn on f4 will come down, and when the rook takes it, it protects his passed pawn on the d file. So even if a move like rook d1 is played, the immediately rook takes f4, protects the pawn, captures one back, and sooner rather than later, we're going to go rook d8, capture your passed pawn, and from there it's curtain. So Lequang Liem well on his way to winning this game.
Well, the Vietnamese grandmaster, a hero in his native Vietnam, definitely suffered a bit of an upset earlier on in the tournament. But you know, the guy, he's young and he's extremely unpredictable, but probably one of the most talented people in this tournament when it comes to tactics.
Definitely, without a question.
Yes, and you know, for those of you who don't know, he's a student of Barev, who has a very deep understanding as a strategical player. And so when you mix that kind of Asian tactical talent with a bit of strategy, you have a bit of a hard force to come against. And it looks like in this game, Lequang Liem is going to have his way. Lawrence, any ideas?
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually know both of them to some extent. I know Lei a few times. I've seen him out in the tournament circuit over the past few years. But I also know Gumi. We call him Gumi, or friends call him Gumi at least. Gudmundur Kjartansson. Now, a little story about Gumi. He's around my age. I think he's 28 years old, 29. And he won the Icelandic Championship this year. He was a huge underdog. He was rated about 7th or 8th out of 10 in that tournament. But he won the tournament. We can see him there in the blue shirt. Really nice guy. Likes to enjoy life, but he's not enjoying life right now because he is busted. I think you can resign with a clear conscience here. And just in that shot, you can see Gudmundur in the blue shirt. We can also see Timur Gareev again. Is he, I mean, I don't want to be, is that some super coffee? Because that looks great. I mean, he looks like he's tuned into something, some other wavelength.
last round.
That's what I'm saying. It's lasted the whole day. Where can I get some of that stuff?
I don't know what he's on.
Is he looking at the camera? Maybe he's listening. Maybe he's tuned in. Maybe he's on a different wavelength.
He was completely lost in the last round.
He's looking at us. I feel... Oh, no, he's gone. He's quite a scary guy, right?
He's scary, and you know what he's into? He's into everything. He loves a challenge. He's passionate about chess, and he's passionate about life. The stories I have heard about him, paragliding, hiking from all kinds of places. The guy is crazy, and his chess is crazy, but he's passionate. Losing in the last round, but just staring out there, laughing, hair everywhere. I don't know what he's on, but I want some of that.
I love his hair. I wish I had his hair. I mean, I literally wish I had the quantity of his hair. But I also love, you know, he's got the mohawk. Is that a mohawk? It's like a deformed I don't know. What is that? That doesn't even have a name, that style.
You know, Lawrence, we got a bit...
That's in between a mohawk and what's it called? A mullet. A mohawk. You can call it a mohawk.
Well, you know, Lawrence, he's one of my favorite players simply because of his wild, dynamic style. But we got a bit of trouble last time talking about his hair too much. But in my opinion, go for it. His hair is fantastic.
He's a fantastic chess player.
Let's have a look at his game. How's he going?
Well, I don't think we actually have access to his game.
We don't have
right
access.
Now. He's not quite on the
What a shame.
digital boards, but a great player. I've had the pleasure of playing against him multiple times. One of the most fantastic people, like extraordinary player. You know, he's adventurous. I wouldn't quite say crazy, but he's adventurous, and he's afraid of no one, and so that helps him in his chess game.
Yeah, I would say that though, you know, he is talking to a few grandmasters. They say that he's lacking in a bit of solidness, and he gets a bit emotional during the game.
Yeah, and there are a lot of players like that who really can beat anyone, but they have a problem buckling down, and when it's time to kind of be cautious and take the position as it is and not think about the win all the time, but maybe think about the draw in a given position. There's some people who need to work, some people who really need to work on that, and sometimes he gets a bit emotional, he doesn't really think with a clear conscience, and he's too busy really thinking about his next victory, and that's a great attribute to have, but can sometimes backfire.
Well, thank you guys for your thoughts on the psychological part of chess, which is probably about 90% of chess at this level. And with that, you know, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Until recently, chess was like this. Chess24 brought you this. Live interactive broadcasts from top tournaments with computer analysis and video commentary by the likes of Jan Gustafsson, Lawrence Trent and Peter Svidler. A play zone where you can take on opponents from all around the world 24/7. Interactive beginners courses ensuring you pick up the basics fast while having fun. A tactics trainer to sharpen your chess by solving puzzles adapted to your level. Hundreds of interactive videos letting you watch and learn from star players such as Vishy Anand, Peter Svidler, Paco Vallejo and Hu Yifan. You've given up on that outdated computer? That's why there are more reasons to use Chess24 on mobiles and tablets. Full playzone access, including pre-move. A tactics trainer so you can stay sharp wherever you are. Computer opponents you can challenge even when you're not online. Live broadcasts of top chess events. And the half? It's free. Well, that's half true. Most features are free, but limited for registered members. For a mere $13.99 per month, however, you can step up to premium membership and gain unlimited access to our video library. That and much more. Make Chess24 your playground.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Millionaire Chess Open, live here from Planet Hollywood, Las Vegas, with over 550 players representing over 40 countries here in Las Vegas. Let's go straight to board one, where we have the young Chinese Grandmaster, Yu Yangyi, versus Georgian Grandmaster, Georgi Margievashvili. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. And the game itself is crazy. There's a queen on A8, and it's not a black queen. So this queen has infiltrated black's forces, and if we want to see how it got there, just a couple moves ago, black went to develop that bishop. And we followed Lawrence's advice from before. White simply castled, black got the bishop to E7, but now with the queen on A8, your king cannot castle because kings are not allowed to make a move through check. And so castling is illegal because of the rook on F1. So that being said, he went bishop D8, bishop A6 attacking the knight, and it's just really all over from here. Knight A7, bishop B7, a fantastic move, attacking this knight. It has no squares to go to. And after queen A5, he made this move, bishop takes C6 check, king to E7 has been played, and this has got to be all over in just a couple moves. It's not looking good for the black side here.
Yeah, I had a look at this position. There's a really simple move just right now. If he plays it, black can resign with clear conscience. All he has to do is play the move bishop to D2. Nice little retreat, just protecting the knight, but more importantly, threatening this discovered check. Knight takes D5. And if the queen, let's say it comes down to A3 or something like that, then the bishop switches. Well, you've even got queen B7 check. That's checkmate. You can't really do anything. I think this is just resigns. Maybe you can come back to C7, but then white's got a lovely little move. He can play the move bishop to E1, just rerouting via H4, giving a check here, and there's nothing that black can do. If you play knight takes C6, you've got knight B5, and the queen is busted. You can't come to D7 because of check, and it'll be mate. So actually, bishop D2 wins on the spot. Whether he sees it or not, it's quite an easy move. I expect him to see it. And he's going to crunch the variations, but he'll get there, and he'll be on 4 out of 4.
Lawrence, easy move, but definitely beautiful move. This is the beauty of chess. Mobility of the pieces, harmony of the pieces. This is what I find the most attractive thing in chess. You know, when you can reroute a piece and it just seems to have, it takes on a completely new life. That's what chess is about, the harmony of the pieces, Robert.
Yeah, and white's pieces are very harmonious, whereas black's are completely dysfunctional. That bishop on H7, the rook on H8, they've just stayed there. They haven't moved for a long time. The rook on H8 has never moved. And you never want your king on E7 with pieces aiming right at it. And that bishop on C6 is preventing the king from moving. The rook on F1 prevents it from going to F-file. And as the line that Lawrence just showed, rerouting that bishop to put that king in check, that spells game over.
Yes, that's definitely going to be a beautiful finish if Yu Yangyi finds it. But meanwhile, let's go to board 2, the next couple who are on perfect score, 3 out of 3. How are they going?
Yeah, this pair is on 3 out of 3, and Alexander Lennerman is playing excellent chess. He stands up a pawn with the black pieces, and he's got a bishop to Matamoros' knight. And we've seen this throughout the tournament. The bishop outplays the knight in so many lines. Look at this bishop on G7. There's nothing stopping it from its diagonal of H8 to A1. But there are so few pieces left on the board. If Matamoros can succeed in trading off some rooks, then that extra pawn is much less meaningful, and he may be able to salvage the draw.
Whose move is it, Robert?
It is black to move here. Lenderman has the move. It's his time.
He's about to move, and he played, is that rook F5, F5?
It looks like he made a move, but as soon as it's updated, we'll put it in. But no matter what, I think that black has very good chances of winning because there are 2 rooks on the board. If there are fewer rooks, the chance will be much slimmer. He made the move F5, and his idea is to expand his king side. If he can, he'll try to get this move G5 in, move his king into where the pawn was, and by expanding on the king side, perhaps creating a passed pawn in the near future, he has the opportunity to not only just win the game, but it's not so clear-cut as that. It's to make Matamoros think and try to get him to make a mistake and allow him to win.
Yes, well, the computer is giving 91% chance win for black. I would say that practically this might be a little bit difficult to convert.
Yeah, definitely. It's 91% is an over-exaggeration based on potential sacrifice of the knight. As we see in many lines, if there are a few pieces on the board, even if you're down a knight and in this case a bishop, that having a rook against a rook and bishop is enough in many cases to hold a draw. So white has to be cautious and make the most of his opportunities. If he can sacrifice this knight for a few of these pawns, then he may have chances to hold the draw.
Well, that's definitely one game that we're going to come back to. I believe that one game is over. I think it's board 11. Kaiserschwili, is that correct?
Yeah, and board 1 looks like it's also over.
Oh, wow. Board 1 is over. Sorry, Margaret's-Vili. Yu Yang-yi versus the Georgian Grandmaster. I think white won that one. Is that right, Lawrence?
Yeah, he did indeed. And we said it would be over shortly. He found another way to do it. There were probably many different ways in the position. If we look very quickly at the final few moves, we saw King E7, Bishop D2 was good, but also the neat Bishop takes D5 was good enough to seal the deal. The point is that after Pawn takes Bishop, the simple Queen takes Bishop, and now there is a threat of Queen to F7 checkmate. Black tried to parry that with Rook F8, but now, very simple tactic, Queen to D6 check, and after, just the King has to go back, Rook takes F8 is checkmate. Margaretashvili didn't bother wasting time. He just resigned on the spot, meaning that the young Chinese Grandmaster, who had a stellar performance at the Olympiad, my pick for the tournament, he's on 4 out of 4, looking good, never in trouble. There's Margaretashvili. We've got him on camera. They're walking out, obviously disappointed, probably quite tired, and we've got Yu Yang-yi, who's obviously going to be ecstatic about his win, and who knows, I don't think he's going to be going out on the town somehow. Just got a feeling about it.
Well, he's on 4 out of 4 now. You know, Robert, I've got a question for you. At this point in the tournament, you've had all the grandmasters, well, most of the top seed grandmasters win, but maybe this is the tipping point where, sorry to be harsh, but the quality, classy grandmasters are beating, we would say, the average grandmasters. Is this the tipping point where we see the separation?
Yeah, you know, grandmasters definitely come in all shapes and sizes, in all ratings, and all different strengths. So here we see that Yu Yang-yi, we've mentioned how young he is, how great of a performance he had at the Olympiad, but he's just getting better. Georgi Margavelashvili is a strong grandmaster in his own right, but he's kind of been stagnant over the past couple of years. He's improved his game in the last few months, but not to the extent of someone like Yu Yang-yi. So, you know, I definitely think that those differences in rating, they catch up to you. And they're an average, right? They're an average of how well you play over an extended period of time, and the higher your rating, the more likely you are to keep on winning. So we see Yang Yi, the Chinese player, 4-0, and he is making it seem pretty easy. This game was a blowout.
He's certainly continuing his victorious Olympiad performance here with the same kind of mentality. He's just going forward, going for it. Let's have a look at I would say the key matchup of the round. Wesley So, our #1 seed, my personal favorite, playing the American superstar of this tournament, Jeffrey Xiong.
Yeah, Ariane, I mean, it's a great battle, and you know, unfortunately it's on board 3, so it's not the highlight of the round per se, but we're all excited to see Jeffrey Xiong play. Right now, he's significantly worse. This pawn advantage, the pawn on A2, the little sneaky guy on the side, is giving white a huge edge. The rook on A5 now does not do well with the king on D6 because the immediate threat is knight to C4 check, forking the pieces. If the king comes out too far, it allows white to simply move the king into E2, but also might run into some trouble by being too adventurous. You want to get an active king in the ending, but sometimes being too active is not a good thing.
Lawrence, I believe you've got a thought about this position.
Yeah, well, Jeffrey's got a bit of a task in front of him. He's got to defend, and this is really where maturity plays a huge part. Has he got enough of it already to be able to salvage this? Well, I'm not entirely sure. What Robert said is absolutely right. You can't be too adventurous, but if you do have an active king in the endgame, it really makes a difference. And in this particular position, the move I like is just to play the move king to D5. Not going on the C line so it can be checked. And if the knight hits the rook, well, it's hitting the rook and the pawn, so the rook has to drop back. And now, I actually like the route of the king just walking in like so, and just posing a few problems. The king can be an attacking piece in an endgame. And remember, once that king comes in, the knight can be kicked away with B5, and suddenly, the king comes down here. Doesn't become so clear. So I think Jeffrey's got to think, right, I'm a pawn down, I've got to play active. I cannot play passive against this guy. I think king d5 is the right move. Go for it, Jeffrey, and we'll see how you do.
Well, you know, our team has produced a very interesting graphic that's going to come up on the screen now, comparing the two players. Let's have a look. So we have Wesley So, Filipino Grandmaster. He's 21 years old, and Jeffrey Xiong, well, not that much younger, but definitely younger. 14 years old. Second place in the World Youth Championship. Under 12 U.S. champion. He's going to give Wesley a hard time. What do you think about this? I mean, I don't think Wesley So achieved that much when he was 14. Do you remember back
Well, he
then?
was definitely very successful at a young age, and he's still quite young, as we mentioned. But, you know, we can clearly see that Jeffrey Xiong is blossoming. We just don't know to what extent. He's at that point in his career where he can really boom into a great chess player, or, you know, if he decides to keep going on with school or whatever it may be in his life, he may not continue chess at such a high level. That's, you know, it's really up to him at this point, because it seems like the sky's the limit for him. He's a great, fantastic player, but, you know, it remains to be seen. It's hard to make a judgment call on such a young player.
Yeah, well, Robert, I mean, what do you say about that? I mean, you must have a lot of friends, well, know a lot of the players, especially in the U.S., where they become extremely strong at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16, and then they go to college, and they don't continue their chess career anymore. Why is that? How does that happen? And do you think that's a bad thing, a good thing?
Well, you know, I made that decision myself. I decided to take a gap year between high school and college just to play chess, but after that, it was all college from there, and I haven't been able to play that much chess. However, you know, that decision is entirely their own. There's some people, especially in Europe, who drop out of school to play chess competitively. For some people, it's a great decision. They end up becoming an elite player and making quite a deal of money. For others, it becomes a very difficult lifestyle. So for Jeffrey Xiong, you know, he's a high schooler, he's a young guy, he has a whole life ahead of him. I think now is not the time to think about the decision, but perhaps in a few years, if he's getting better and better, as it appears he will, then it might be time to make that really difficult but necessary decision.
It is a difficult decision, Robert, and I think a lot of it depends on what country you play for, what country you're playing chess in, because as you just said, in Europe, it's very difficult, but then again, in Europe, there are a lot of countries that support chess in a very big way. But with that, you know, that's life, that's chess, and that's something Jeffrey will have to think about. With that, let's go to the commercial break. We'll be back in 10 minutes. But before we go, let's have a look at the puzzle on screen. You've got 10 minutes to solve it. Gonna be exciting. We hope you find the solution, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Hello, everybody. We are back here in the middle of round 4 of the Millionaire Chess Open. It's Friday night here, and I am with Jonathan, the youngest participant of the Millionaire Chess Open. Jonathan, how are you feeling? I hear that you have done excellently today. 1.5 points out of 2. Is that right?
Yes,
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
And you know, chess isn't the only thing he's good at. Yesterday, the young man won Best Dressed Prize. How do you feel about that?
Happy.
Who dresses you?
My daddy.
Daddy is definitely a very cool daddy. So, you know what? We wish you the best luck for this tournament. I think you're going to win the Best Dressed Prize every day, especially with that hat on. You're gorgeous. We love you. And we are sure that you are going to have the best tournament of your life here in Vegas. Lawrence, over to you to solve the winning puzzle. Guess the move.
Yeah, I might give his dad a call as well because my wardrobe needs a bit of an uplift. That's to say the least. But in terms of the puzzle, for all of you who did have a look during the break, really nice little tactic in the position. For all of you who got it, well done. For all of you who didn't, hard luck. Try again next time at least. This is the game Niedorf-Glicksberg, all the way back from 1929, nearly 100 years ago. And in the position, it's quite clear that White is the one dominating. He's got the attack. Did you find the killer blow? Well, the right move in the position is to play the outstanding rook takes e6, just clearing the path of this bishop because the black king is boxed in on g8. One check from this bishop and it's got nowhere to go. So were the bishop to recapture the rook here, there's 2 ways of winning. The cutest is to play queen takes bishop, the queen has to recapture, then bishop takes queen, and that's checkmate, game is over. Instead, in the game, what actually happened is Glicksberg took the queen off on e8, but no fear, rook takes e8 was played, giving a check, a discovered check as we call it. The bishop has to block, there's no other move, but now we just whip that bishop off, bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, and no, we do not recapture. A lot of players would want to recapture the queen here, but instead, another little nice mating configuration. Rook takes f8, the king is still boxed in on g8, and that is that. Hope you solved it, and look out for more during our future games.
Well, you know, the young, very handsome, very well-dressed man I had with me, 6-year-old Jonathan, the youngest participant of our tournament. His favorite player, apparently, is Bu Shangqi, and Bu Shangqi's game just finished. Let's go straight to that. What happened, Robert?
Well, I think Bu's still going, actually. He's on the worst side of the game, but he's fighting. He's all tournament. He's been struggling with his game. Oh, maybe you're right. It looks like
it's finished.
It is finished.
Yeah.
And that means the game's ended in a draw. And while black is up a pawn, there's not enough play because of the opposite color bishops. This bishop will compete on this diagonal, this bishop on its diagonal, and they just can't counter each other, which creates problems in winning these type of endgames despite being up a pawn. So Bu Shangqi moves up to 3 out of 4, has not exactly played the most promising chess in this event. He won his first 2 rounds and has drawn both games today. But I think he's been playing a little bit shakily, so we'll see how he mixes up tomorrow.
Well, Robert, I'd say that as the second seed of this tournament, he's probably a bit disappointed with 2 draws. Would you say?
Yeah, he's got to be disappointed, but judging by his play, if we're going to be objective, he doesn't deserve to win the games that he's been playing. So, 3 out of 4 is an excellent result considering the moves on the board. Coming into the tournament, he probably thought he was one of the favorites. He was going to have an easy go of it, but no, this is Vegas. This is the Millionaire Chess Open. Nothing is easy. Nothing is given to you. You have to earn it. He's not earning it right now.
Well, with that very strong statement, before we get back stuck into the other games, let's have a look at what MC correspondent Alexandra has to say.
Thanks, Ariane. Such a cute segment having Jonathan Chen. I actually call him Boss Chen right now because he did his game in 15 minutes and in 14 moves. That's pretty impressive for a 6-year-old. Who else is impressive? Another one of my favorites in this tournament, Turner Goff. I had a chance to sit with him before the tournament started, but we're going to talk to him about his round because you won, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
That's not very exciting. You won, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And so how was the match? Tell me about round 3. I mean, round 4.
Well,
Was it tough?
yes. It was,
Okay. Was there a point where you thought you were going to take it?
Not really.
But it was still a tough game.
Yeah.
And so, how old are you?
I'm 12.
Okay, so at 12-year-old, just won their round, tough game. What are you gonna do after?
Probably go up to the room and sleep.
Yeah. And what did you do before the round? Do you like prep by doing a lot of chess stuff before, or do you just not want to think about chess at all?
Well, I played the other round, and I didn't really have enough time to like sleep and stuff and rest. So I played the round right after this.
Oh,
first
so
round.
that's why you were nervous, right?
Yeah.
And your mom is here. Speaking of nervous, you must be so nerve-wracked in between every round.
Sometimes I think it's worse on the parents than it is on the players.
I know. So Sherry, tell me what it's like to be a chess mom following Turner and seeing such growth and an amazing play in every tournament.
It's a wonderful feeling. I know there are several chess moms and dads out there, and we just want to support chess. I think this tournament is incredible because it brings so much notoriety, so much to chess. It's just Amy and Maurice have been doing such a great job, and we're just honored to be here.
How many tournaments does Turner do a year?
He's done several around the country, and we use it kind of in our teaching as well. When we went to Philadelphia, we went and saw the Declaration of Independence, you know, for example. So it's a part of our learning as well, and we travel around. He's been to several different tournaments around the country and loves it, loves traveling, you know.
You know, I actually found that very interesting because you pulled him out of the regular school system to homeschool him. So being in the tournament circuit, that's all part of the homeschooling experience, right?
Yes, he's exposed at chess tournaments. He's exposed to so many different kinds of people, and it's just so educational. There's different nationalities, different ages, and it's just been a wonderful learning experience for him and for myself too.
So I got my eyes on you, Turner, okay? You're going to kill it for the rest of the tournament, and I'm going to check in with you a little later. You get some rest tonight, okay, champ? Okay. Thanks so much, Sherry. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Turner. Good luck for the rest of the tournament. Let's go to another youngster who is one of the youngest chess authors in history. Daniel Naroditsky, he's playing with the black pieces. Robert, how is he doing?
Well, he's playing an excellent game right now. He's the black pieces against a very strong grandmaster from Cuba, I believe. And he is just killing it right now. I backed this game up a couple moves. I want to show you what just transpired. He made this move, rook to g8. He's trying to barrel down on this weak pawn on g3. The king on h2, not a great defensive piece. And if that's the only piece protecting the pawn g3, you know you're in trouble. Retreating the rook to f3 doesn't help matters at all. The rook comes to g5, and after the rook c goes to g8, this g-pawn may as well be lost with an additional threat of rook h5. So instead of suffering like this and being crunched in, he went with the sacrifice, rook takes e5. Unfortunately for him, this doesn't solve matters at all. Pawn takes e5 is the natural response, and after pawn takes e4, Daniel Naroditsky's thinking, but I believe the move queen to e6 will just finish this game up because the queen pins the c4 pawn to the bishop on a2, and if the only move you have to protect that pawn is b3, this bishop locked in here, white is in grave danger.
Wow, so are we seeing another upset?
I wouldn't consider it an upset. I think they're about the same rating, so it's a fight no matter what. But however, having the black pieces clearly at a disadvantage. We know the statistics of chess show that white has the advantage, but not in this game. Daniel Naroditsky proving he's the stronger player tonight.
Can we perhaps get a bit of a zoom in the camera on how Daniel is playing now? Have a look at the clock. Is that possible? Because he looks very confident.
I'm not sure that is totally necessary. If I'm honest, Ariane, he could have 2 minutes and still win this position. And I have to slightly disagree with Mr. Hess on this one. I think it is a bit of a result. Isan was rated about 2640 last year. He's lost a few points. He's gone back down to 2600 when we're talking about ELO rating. The fact that Isan's got the white pieces, I know him very well because I go to Cuba myself. I play in the Capablanca Memorial. He played for the Olympic team this year. He always puts in a very decent performance. And the fact that he's losing against Daniel with the white pieces, do you know what? I think given it's only a small rating gap, but being white as well, it's a bit of an upset. And I think Daniel, it's more of a great result rather than an upset. Let's put it like that.
Well, looking at the video, Lawrence, just a couple of boards down, we have the two veterans of the game, or shall I say the two veterans of open chess tournaments in the United States, Shabalov Andreev, fighting it out there. Andreev there in the red shirt, looking, what does he look like, Robert? Does he look happy? Does he look upset?
He looks pensive. And I think Shabalov looks dapper in the glasses and the shirt. And he's really into this game. And I think right now his opportunity to fight hard. Queen to d4 on this game right now looks like Shabalov is right back in it. Earlier, we mentioned that he looked worse, his opponent, the two bishops, his king looked weak. But since then, it looks like he's only made progress. And with the queen trade coming, if white takes on d4, followed by knight takes, this bishop on f3 is under attack. This knight can come to c2, hitting the bishop on a3 and the rook on e1. Things are not looking promising for Andreev. I think this game will fizzle out into a draw in the very near future, splitting the point.
Well, I think that would be a pretty fair point between the two veterans of the U.S. Open tournaments, two guys who have cut their teeth on the U.S. circuit. Definitely the most experienced players in the Millionaire Chess Open when it comes to winning these kind of tournaments.
Remember, they're both from the same school of chess as well. I think that's the important thing here. Shabalov, Andreev from the old Soviet school. They know each other very well, known each other for years. So it's really interesting when these two guys face off. Both got deep respect for each other. But you're right about the move, Robert. I have to agree. If he plays this move, queen d4, I think he's got a great shout at putting a bit of pressure on, actually. It's even more than just, trying to hope for a draw. From a practical perspective, white's position, it's not actually that great after this queen d4 move. So we'll see what Andreev does to counter that. But if I had to bet, which so far I've done very unsuccessfully here in Vegas, I'll go for the draw, because that's, I've got to start damage limitation now. I just can't go all crazy and risk-free. Risk-free or risk-taking, that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Lawrence. Well, it's all about taking risks. Let's see what Lei Quan-Lei did. He's definitely the kind of player that has to take some risks after a bit of a setback yesterday. How is he doing? He won, didn't he? How did he do that?
Yeah, he won easily, actually. He didn't even have to take risks. That's how much of a crushing position he had. Early going, we see that both sides have even material. But he just broke through with this pawn move, e5. He's trying to gain space in the center, put his knight on that d4 square, vital in this position. So his opponent, the Icelandic champion, went d5. But not to be deterred, he just put that knight right in there, knight to d4. And after a swap on d4, the bishop on g7 has no counterpart, leaving it wide open for an attack, and that's exactly what ensued. After a couple moves and advancing moves for the black side, the pawn on d3 opened that bishop's teeth up like a shark, gaining that rook on a1. And just trying to fight off that bishop, he gave up his rook for it, but that was enough. Li Kuang-Liang scooped up the victory very easily with a nice attack, and from here it was simple. He's got an advantage of the material, advantage in position, an advantage in rating, and you know what? He came through this game.
Well, let's look at a couple of boards down from him. The Estonian Grandmaster, Kulauts, how is he doing? He's going the black pieces. We know he had a bit of a rough time this morning. Looks like he's recovered a little bit. Or how would we evaluate the position?
Well, he's definitely recovered from his match this morning. He was better this morning, but he couldn't pull through, I thought. It was back and forth with Sam Shanklin. Maybe not better, maybe it's a stretch, but he looked like he was fighting. Here, he also has a great fighting chance against Georgi Khachashvili. Khachashvili with the white pieces hasn't gotten much of anything, and it looks like Kulauts will at least salvage a draw, but I think he should try to play it for a win. But he really has to be careful, otherwise he could fall victim to a vicious attack in the 7th rank.
Lawrence, what have you got to say about this position?
Yeah, I agree with Robert totally. In fact, he's got a really cute little idea here. And if we look at the position just over my left shoulder, just here, I'll do that just in case. So it looks like right, it's actually my left, just in case you got confused. If he plays the move, rook c7, I really like this move. The point is, it looks like white can just win a pawn on a5, but that runs into the cute little king to b6, and suddenly this rook right on the edge of the board, it's got nowhere to go. It's actually totally trapped, and white could resign with a clear conscience. Black's just going to take that off with the king. So what's going to happen is, if he plays rook c7, he's going to take that off, and king takes. And we've got a situation where Black has got what's called a queenside majority of pawns. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 3, and his idea is he just wants to create a passed pawn, and he does this with absolute ease. He plays b4 and c3. The king is on the queen side already, and white is quite slow. He would love just to get rid of this g4 pawn that Black has in order to march his own pawns up the board. So it's going to be a bit of a race, but I think Black is really quick, and I fear for Georgi Kierashvili. And we can see that Kaido Kulouts, for me, one of the most... I know we had a discussion about this. He's definitely one of the strongest managers. Maybe our very own Maurice Ashley could compete, but this guy is a gym beast. Doesn't look like it in that shirt, but trust me, I've seen him, and he's an absolute monster. He's a big lifter, and you can see there, he's a very talented guy. He's a very nice guy as well. I think he's going to find rook c7, and I think if I had to put my money on this game, actually, I would go with him. I think this is very unpleasant for white.
Well, he's one of the strongest players physically in the chess world, and the 4th strongest player to come out of Estonia, of course, after Keres, Elvest, and Ol. And he's definitely got a fighting chance here in Las Vegas. Let's have a look at Samuel Shankland, young U.S. prodigy, done very well in the last Olympiad for the U.S. Olympic team. How is he going, Robert?
Well, the gold medalist looks like he's going to have his medal stripped today. He had a great position in the early going. He was outplaying Ruben Felgeier. He was up a pawn in the opening, but now it's not looking so good. If we take a look at the position that's been transpired here, a few moves ago, this is what it looked like. White has a healthy pawn advantage with his pawn on b3 being the extra pawn. However, things don't look so good now. Rook to e5, he's trying to get tactical and tricky. The idea is if knight takes e5, pawn takes, even though you've just gained some material for black, things are quickly falling apart with your pawn, starting with your pawn on d5. But the strong player Felgeier did not take. He went knight e4. Instead, putting his piece in the center, trying to open the lines for himself. After rook takes e8 check, rook takes, rook d1. If Felgeier sees it now, he's got a winning opportunity. And it's actually quite simple. Knight takes c3, bishop takes c3. Looks like a simple trade, but here comes the boom. Rook e3. And now the bishop on f3 and the bishop on c3 are simultaneously under attack, because if it looks like you can retreat to attack the rook, but no, rook takes f3 threatens the house. Queen takes f3 looks like the natural reply, but after bishop e4, we see on this diagonal, it's all Felgeier in this one.
But Robert, is all of his force? Certainly white can defend a little bit stronger, better than this.
Well, right now it's forced because he actually just made this move, rook to d1. It looks completely innocuous. It looks like the natural response, saving your pawn on d4. But with this very, very simple tactic, the most natural-looking move, it is all over for Shankland. His $1 million tournament might end up in flames, and a $100,000 purse might be out of reach.
Might be over for the young Sam Shankland, who we were hoping wouldn't just be a flash in the pan with his latest Olympiad performance. But you know what? Anything can happen. Over to you, Lawrence.
You know, it's a really interesting moment because I know that Sam Shankland has seen what he's just done. I know he knows that he's lost. It's all about keeping that poker face. We talk about the psychology of chess. Ariane, you quoted before, you think 90% of the game is psychology. I would agree that it's just such a huge amount. You've got to remain calm. If he starts showing that he's agitated, Ruben's going to pick up on that. And there are some players who deal with this differently. I know that when I make a huge blunder, what I like to do is just get up from the board. There was a great instance at the World Cup last year where Gada Kamsky was playing in one of his games. And I know his opponent, Shimonov, he made just an atrocious blunder. He hasn't got a poker face. He just had to get up from the board, get away, just so not to give away the fact that he made such a big mistake. It looks as though Sam is quite a calm kind of guy. His poker face looks all right. He just looks he looks mellow. Ruben's looking, I don't know what he's looking at. I mean, I know Ruben very well. I've been around the tournament circuit with him. It's such an easy tactic. I don't know what he's thinking about. Knight c3, bishop c3, rook e3. It's the first thing you look at. If he doesn't play it, I'll be absolutely shocked. He's ready. He's poised. His right arm he's kind of propped up. He's like one of these, 1815 machines. The first robots. Oh my goodness, how has he not seen it? It's gross. Ugh. He's going to be disgusted. And he's seen it. I think he's. And do you know what happens? You play a move, and as soon as you played the move, you see it. I think he's now seen it. He's going to be so disgusted with himself after if he doesn't win this. In fact, he'll be disgusted either way because it's such a rudimentary tactic. Well done for Sam for keeping the poker face.
That is certainly going Sam Shankland's way. That is very lucky for him. Ruben Felguera missing that, well, you could say quite a simple tactic.
Nice.
Knight takes c3, rook e3, pitting the queen on f3 after taking on f3 with the rook. You know, Ruben Felguera is one of those players who never quite reached the level that he deserves, being a native of Argentina, constantly underrated, being unable to play those FIDE Opens over in Europe due to the economic, you could say, isolation of Argentina, currency issues. Argentinian players seem to suffer that quite a lot. They're constantly underrated. But you know, when they get out of the country, finally, they start playing their chess. But unfortunately, their FIDE rating says otherwise. So Felguera there, he's just missed his chance. He set it up beautifully, but unfortunately, this is not going his way.
He's still doing great. I mean, he's still got a good position, Robert. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're counting him out of the fight just because he misses big punch. But he's got a lot of jabs left in him. He can drop his knight into c2 in the near future. It looks kind of strange because you're putting your knight into enemy territory with no direct threat, but there really is one. The knight is looping in from b4 to e3 to put tons of pressure on the queen on f1 and rook on d1. And it's not so easy for Shankland to play. We admit he's relieved, he's happy his opponent missed the game-finishing tactic, but what now? Now that you get over that initial hump, you take a sigh of relief, but what if you go knight takes e4, after even a move like pawn takes e4, I might go bishop takes e4, get rid of this defensive piece, and it just looks like there's not enough for white in the position, and I would even favor black if I was trying to play for the win with pawn takes e4. I think black is still in the lead, although not as big in the lead that he could have been just a move ago.
Well, you got to admit, Robert, that if he had seen that after playing knight b4, that he had just missed a pretty easy win, that might be a slight psychological blow. But, you know, Ruben knows he's in the driving seat here. I think he's going to push this through to a win. Sam Shankland there, look at him. He looks a little bit depressed.
Yeah, he looks completely dejected. He must realize that he just kind of got thrown a gift, and that gift is kind of just, you know, it's a farce because he is still in the game, but he's still worse. And it must be frustrating to be up a pawn. Look at him. He's really thinking hard. He's trying to get out of this. But I think Ruben Felguera should still be content. And if he can get over that psychological hump and not get too upset about missing that great shot, he's still in it. He's still going to win it.
Definitely Ruben Felguera there, a kind of hero from Argentina. Definitely an underrated grandmaster, not achieving the level that he deserves, but certainly one to look at in this tournament, a dark horse, and winning there against Sam Shankland. We're going to be back after a short break. welcome back to the Millionaire Chess Open live here from the ballroom of Planet Hollywood, Las Vegas. As we can see, the fourth round of this big money open tournament is nearly, well, reaching the end, but it's still very exciting. We have a few games here that, well, we could say a few missed chances. We've seen a few tonight, especially the Argentinian Grandmaster Ruben Falguera missing a very easy tactic here. As we can see on the board, Robert, if we bring that up, he missed quite an easy win, but he's still, I would say, winning this position.
Yeah, he's definitely much better. I wouldn't say winning. A move ago he was winning, but he's just played the very nice move, knight to c2. It's what I just talked about right before we went on break, and he's trying to get to that vulnerable e3 square. And once there are forks at play. He's way more active, and he's got great chances to win.
Right, and why don't we have a look at our first board matchup? Two people on a perfect score, 3 out of 3. The young Grandmaster from China, Olympic hero for the Chinese team, Yu Yangyi.
Well, Yu Yangyi, we saw his win earlier, but for those of you who missed it, he finished with his nice checkmate idea, queen d6 check. He's up a lot in the center, and he really pulled that one through. But on board 2, our other 3-0 matchup, trying to stay undefeated, is Alex Lenderman. He's looked sharp all tournament. We had him as an interviewee last round. He said he's really just trying to play game by game. And in this game, it looks like it's panning out because he's got a pawn advantage and is trying to win.
That's right, Robert. But let's have a look at that position a little bit closer. We can see that Alexander here has the bishop and he's a pawn up. But how would you practically convert that pawn into a win?
Well, the initial idea is to start by pushing the knight away and making progress with your pawn, but not going too far. You got to take the most of your opportunities, take your time. There's no this move, that move. It's a strategy. You got to take advantage of your bishop's spatial, kind of spatial awareness, and because you have the whole diagonal where the knight only can move a couple squares at a time. So if he keeps that in mind, I think he can try to make this one a victory.
And I believe Lawrence has a thought about this.
Absolutely, yes. Well, this is a very important endgame for all of you out there who perhaps haven't encountered it before. You should know, or at least you should learn the following little rule. In a position where, let's say in the current position, white were to play a move like king g2, and black were to push, as Robert mentioned, with h5, and then white were to jump in with knight e5 check. Looks pretty simple, right? Actually, if in this position, were black to whip this knight off on e5, that would be a mistake. And the reason is because after rook takes bishop, despite the fact that black has got an extra pawn, when there is a situation where there are 2 pawns versus 1 on the same flank, especially when there are the g and h pawns versus the h pawn, this is really easy to hold, especially for grandmasters of this strength. So for all of you who didn't know that, bear that in mind, which means that if we just retreat a few moves, as soon as he gives the check, if Alex wants to push, he actually has to come up with his king. He should play the move king f5, keeping the bishop on, because the bishop and rook combination can create a lot more threats. And if the pawns do come down with the aid of the king, there might be a slight hope. I would say that most of the time white is drawing this position, but black is playing for 2 results, and that's what you want in chess. And Alex, he shouldn't be too disheartened. I think he's just going to really try and press this one.
Well, speaking of endgames that we should know about, let's go to the other tournament leader, Jeffrey Xiong. This is another, well, maybe slightly more complicated endgame, but certainly one that is very interesting. White here is a pawn up and pressing for the win. But again, how can he practically convert this against Jeffrey Xiong? Wesley So, of course, the top seed, vying to win this, and certainly wants to beat Jeffrey Xiong. He's made a draw today, so he wants to get back in there on the leaderboard. How is he going to do this?
Well, Wesley's not just vying to win, he's eyeing to win. So if you look at his face right there, he's really looking into the board, looking for all the possibilities, because he knows that he'll be better forever. But being better isn't enough. He has to win. And he started off on the right track. He's moved his king over to the queen side to protect his queen side majority. Now, after this move knight d5, Jeffrey went rook to d7, which is kind of a curious move. He's allowing the white side to trade rooks. And normally, we've talked about this time and time again, when you're only up 1 pawn, it can be dangerous to trade material. but here it might be more than enough. Knight b4 check looks like the best move. King to c7 looks forced, and now after a move like rook takes rook, king takes rook, we have a passed a pawn coming very soon. So I think in this particular endgame, there'll be more than enough to secure victory, but you always have to keep in mind that trading too much can come back to haunt you.
Well, the statistics show a 93% chance to win for white. In my opinion, that's a little bit too much because these endings can be extremely tricky, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a bit optimistic, but we have to take into account the huge rating differential between the players. I understand Jeffrey's been playing well above his level all tournament. He's kind of the hero we've been focusing on. But Wesley is one of the top 15 players in the world, and he's really been playing some good chess this event. He struggled a little bit this morning, but he's back on his form, up a pawn, and I think he's coming close to gaining that victory.
Well, Lawrence, what do you think about this matchup? It looks like you've got some insight here. We have their profiles on the screen. We can compare them both. Very young, very talented players, both very dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we look there, we saw on the top of that graphic that white has 90% chance of winning. What are these dollar bills? I don't know what these things are. I'm not used to this money. I'm going to get it all on so. There's no way he's drawing this. He's just going to win it. He's going to play knight b4. The a-pawn's too much. 93% I actually don't think is so outrageous in this position. The way there's actually no way black can hold. With the kingside pawns still on the board, white can distract the black knight, means that it has to come over to the queen side, look after the kingside pawns. Wesley's the better player. I'm lumping it all. Whatever's in my, I think I got $5 on there. It's all going on Wesley, and much better odds than I get on the blackjack. I'll never play that again. Back to you guys.
Definitely not. Not after watching the amount of money you lost today. Let's move away from the youngsters.
Can we not? Yeah, let's move on to the chess.
Let's move on to some of the veterans of this. Well, not veterans, but more experienced players. Speaking of which, Kaidanov and Akobian. Let's have a look at that matchup. Two extremely experienced players. This looks, wow, this is come from an extremely complicated position. Slightly simplified now, but I would take black. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks like Akobian has escaped. Earlier, when I was talking about this game, it looked like Akobian was in grave danger. And this is the position we saw earlier. How it came from this to this is a matter of, over the course of the game, you make mistakes. Kanov knew that he had a better position. We knew that he had a better position. And if you look at him, he doesn't look too happy. VAR looks like he's in control. He looks very calm. And it looks here that Kaidanov can go over and scoop this pawn on b7. But there are several issues with that. Once your queen takes the pawn, yes, it gives the black king check. But the black king is surprisingly safe on h6 if it comes out this way. And this king is very exposed on h1. So the chances, I think, are about level, but both sides need to be very careful. And I would start, instead of taking that pawn, I don't like to be greedy. I know we're in Vegas, we're talking about money, but no, we got to be calm. We got to look at our options and go knight to e2. I think that looks better. It's a defensive move. You're moving your piece backwards, retreating towards your king, and that way you're a little more protected.
You know what, Robert? I think that VAR, or Varujan Akobian, must be so happy with how events have turned out here because, as we saw earlier, he was, well, slightly worse or struggling a little bit out of the opening, and now he's got this very fluid position.
Yeah, he managed to escape, and sometimes it happens when you're that wily veteran. You get out there, and he fights every game, and he makes it happen.
Whose move is it right now?
Right now in the game, it is white's move because black just moved his king out from check. So we see in the game, his last was king to g7, escaping check, allowing white to capture the pawn on b7 if he so chooses. But very uneven, very double-edged. We'll see what happens.
So what happens here if white plays knight e2?
Well, knight e2 is a move that came to me instinctually, and it looks like this bishop is under attack. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe this move, bishop to b6, is possible. It looks a little strange because it looks like you're giving a free rook, but the problem with taking this rook is there are back rank issues on f1. And if my queen comes in, you only have one choice to block with your knight, and that is c'est la vie, game over. Queen takes g1 mate. But he's not going to fall for that. So bishop b6, perhaps he can just start giving some checks, and it might end up being a bunch of checks leading the game to peter out into a draw. You don't want to make this blunder, gross blunder, because queen c1 check, king moves, and now after rook takes d6, my queen covers the vital square, allowing white to seize victory. So I think with proper play, both sides have chances, but it also could soon become a draw.
Right. Well, I find that position extremely interesting. I want to go back to that, but before we do, let's have a look at some activity on the Twitter sphere. Susan Polgar, ex-woman world champion and great ambassador for chess. So much tension at high-stakes chess. No easy game. One mistake can cost you $100,000. Absolutely right. Reminding us that everybody here, well, over 550 players from 40 different countries are here playing for a kitty of $1 million. Let's see another tweet. Here from Nick K, enjoying the broadcast. Thank you, Nick. At high stakes chess, with such prizes, the tension on the last rounds will be huge. Absolutely, we are waiting for Millionaire Monday. Everybody is waiting for Millionaire Monday, and the tension is heating up.
Yeah.
One more tweet we have from Jesse M. I better get good for next year's tournament. Absolutely, Jesse, you better get good because I think it's going to happen again, and you want to play for some big money. Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, it's not just about the Grandmasters tournament. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to be a Wesley So. You don't have to be a Hikaru Nakamura to win what is really unprecedented in terms of chess tournaments in the past, open tournaments. If you're rated 1,400, 1,600, 1,800, you can win prizes as much as $40,000. This is life-changing money for a lot of these people. So this tournament really is about making dreams come true, and it will for certain people. So don't stress if you're not a Grandmaster, because the next tournament that will take place, you'll be able to play for a huge amount of money. And I know certainly, I'm thinking about, maybe even a little something myself, because, I might have to have a little word with the tournament organizer here. I quite fancy playing for 100,000. Sounds like fun, but a lot of pressure. I can't wait for Millionaire Monday. Can't wait to cover it. It's going to be so much fun for us. It's going to be heartache. Can you imagine losing that $100,000 game? Imagine you're winning it. That's what I'm looking. I really hope for it. I'm a kind of masochist, excuse me for that. I'm really hoping that somebody's, and he just makes a huge, the tension, the tears, love a bit of drama.
We do love a bit of drama here in Vegas. Well, as Lawrence pointed out earlier, it's not just about the top grandmasters here. You do not need to be Hikaru Nakamura or Wesley So or Lei Kwang-Lee to win big money here in Las Vegas at the Millionaire Chess Open. We also have some big prizes for the amateur section, and that's why we're going to go to the under 1800 section. Is that right, Robert?
That is right. We're going to the top board of the under 1800 section, and there are only 6 perfect scores heading into this round. And we have on this board here Sameh Shaheen, I pardon if I butchered your name, and Charles Hill IV. And this is a battle. This is a really strong endgame for black, but white is not out of it just yet. I think that if black is not careful, white can counter and try to seize the draw here, but it looks like the move c4 leads black to victory. It's a pretty harmless looking move, but it does free up the square d3 for that knight, and you can't trade with the bishop. For example, if king g2, knight d3, bishop takes, pawn takes, we see that with 1, 2 passed pawns, it's all over for white. So this is one of those endgames where the knight actually dominates the bishop, because if we go back to the start here, and he did make the move c4. So that is a great accomplishment. And we're talking about amateur players who are not in the open section, but clearly very talented.
Well, clearly Charles Hill IV is in a bit of trouble. We would say that white, could you call this like a kind of a zugzwang?
Yeah, there's no options. This bishop has no free squares. It's trapped in by all its own pawns. We see the pawn on f3 blunted on this diagonal. You can't come out over anywhere on the other diagonal because this pawn on c4 now closes it off there. So in just a few moves with proper play, and I trust the players in the board 1 of this section, I think the leader playing with black is going to continue his perfect streak.
Well, that's going to get exciting. As you can see, even the amateurs, they are getting very excited in the Millionaire Chess Open because they're playing for some big money as well. Now back to the Open where the top prize is $100,000. Let's have a look at board 2. Alexander Lenderman versus Matamoros. Previously he was winning that position, but still very hard to win or convert this endgame, shall we say. How is he going with that?
Yeah, he just really hasn't made much progress. It's just because Matamoros has a holdable position. He's trying very hard. Lenderman will play this all night. I know Alex for years. He's a very fierce competitor, and he doesn't care if this game lasts till 5 in the morning, if that's possible. He will still be here trying to make this work. But unfortunately for him, I think right about now, Matamoros is entering that draw range. Despite being down the pawn, he's fighting hard. There's just not enough material left to allow Lenderman an easy victory. So I think he will be able to leave this round with another half point.
Yes, well, with that, I think we're going to have a short break before we get stuck into the latter part of the games at the 4th round of the Millionaire Chess Open. We will be back in 10 minutes. But while we're gone, we have a puzzle for you to solve. Winning move. Guess the winning move. It's going to be up on the screen. See you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody, to a very exciting Friday night here in Las Vegas. It is round 4 of the Millionaire Chess Open. We hope that you use the last few minutes to solve a, well, maybe a little difficult puzzle. Lawrence, you've got the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a game played quite some years ago between Jose Raul Capablanca, the former world champion, the only ever Cuban world champion, playing against Pedro Alfredo. And well done if you managed to find the solution. A bit tricky, I have to say. I tried it myself, getting a bit tired, found it in the end, but here it is. The first move you have to play here with white is pawn to e7 check. Now, the point is that if black takes this knight off, well, that's fine, because now we can make a queen, and it's a discovered check against the king along here. So you can't take the knight off, meaning that you have to just sidestep to g8. There's no other move. But in this position, you can now queen the pawn. And after queen takes queen, knight takes queen, f2, this is really the critical point where everybody at home should have got up to. Can white stop that pawn from queening itself? Well, well done if you've seen it. The correct solution is that you have to give a check on f6. The king only has one square. If it goes to h8, rook h7 is a neat little checkmate. So it doesn't go there. It comes to f8. And now you give another check via h7. And when the king comes to g8 this time, you don't repeat with the checks. That doesn't get you anywhere. But you play the move rook to a8, another check, giving up the knight. But the point is, if king takes knight, you then can come behind the pawn, collecting that guy. And if you win the pawn on f2, that is all. So just a nice little bit of a nice little exercise for your calculating skills, actually. And remember, calculation, as well as psychology, various other components, is a big part of chess. Improving your calculation, you will improve your chess strength.
Thank you for that brilliant miniature from the former world champion, my favorite world champion, Capablanca from Cuba. Now we are nearing the end of round 4. Let's go straight into the action of the top boards. Ray Robson with black. Slightly better here with the black pieces, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, the position I have on the board here was a position from a couple moves ago. But Ray played very good chess at a certain moment. He went knight to c5. Now, if you trade queens, which Chirito was forced to do after queen takes c3 check, because the bishop on b3 is hanging, now black's pass pawn is even further down the board. And after bishop c2, saving the bishop from the attack of the black knight, simple chess, but black is going to win this game. King f6, he went f4, and he just went king to e7. He's trying to gobble up this pawn on d5. The issue for white is that this king cannot get to this pawn. The d3 square is covered by this black knight. In order to get through d4, well, you're not going to get there in time because my king is going to go to d6 and gobble up your d5 pawn too quickly. That being said, Chirito went g4, but a simple idea like taking on g4 followed by king d6, and everything is in black's favor here.
Well, we can see Ray there on camera looking very confident, but still kind of thinking because, you know, once he wins that pawn on d5, how would you practically convert that extra pawn up into a win?
Well, you have to keep at least one other pawn on the board. So, for example, Chirito should try to go f5. And behind f5, you could keep another pawn on by going g5, but I would capture, and once you keep this pawn on the board, maybe even start with f6, keep it in a dark square. You capture this pawn, bring your knight around to attack the bishop, and after that, it should be a very simple game. If we just make a few sample moves, king to e2, king takes d5, king to e3, we see that the king still cannot make any progress. So from here, I can just start moving my king into c4. I can decide to move my king to e5 and attack this f5 pawn. Just way too many options for black in the position. White is just shuffling back and forth.
Well, that looks like, well, the statistics are giving Ray Robson here 96% chance of winning. It seems like the players there on screen are playing quite quickly. If I was playing, I would be a bit scared that too many pawns are being traded off, because if they are, it's going to be a draw. But as you've just showed us, it's not that easy to trade pawns here for white. Lawrence, have you got any news for us?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with what Robert and you said in this position. I think that Ray is going to convert. He's going to keep some pawns on the board. the c-pawn is going to prove decisive. But if we go back perhaps to some other games that we've been keeping an eye on during this round, we've got here Kaidanov versus Akobian, and things have really gone in the favor of Akobian. If we look at the current position after queen takes e5, we can see that black is just a whole pawn up. He's got a very good bishop on d6, and white has got to be super careful. If he tries to win the pawn back via, let's say, queen b3 check, the black king scoots over to f8, white whips his pawn off on b7, but now just the move g5, and it's a very logical move, kicking this knight away to an awkward square. It can't come to d3 because of queen e4 check, just winning a whole piece. Has to go to the side of the board, some ugly square like h3, and after queen e4 again, it's Var who has got the queen and bishop combo to really put pressure on the position. So things have really gone in his favor, and it wouldn't surprise me if he took home the full point.
Well, Lawrence, Kaidanov there certainly not too happy with how this game has panned out, being slightly better previously, and misplayed it a little bit. I gotta say though, I love his shirt. He's looking very good tonight. Now over to some other veterans of the US Open chess circuit. Alexei Dre versus Alexander Shabalov.
Yeah, this game is going to peter out into a draw soon. It looks like there's some activity, but in reality, the opposite colored bishops, time and time again, they can't compete with each other on the diagonals. That means it's hard to trade them, and from there, it's hard to make progress. In this position right now, white's king is a little open, as is black's. But the simple move, queen to f2, putting pressure on this bishop on f3, leaving this bishop open to attack b2. And if you take on b7, a simple move like bishop takes b2 looks like it's enough for black to hold. Down 2 pawns in that position, but just not enough for white to accomplish much. And he decided instead to keep pawns on the board by going pawn to b5, and that's perfectly reasonable as well. The pawn on b2 is still under attack, so they have one b3, but there's just not enough going on. b4 closes everything down. The dark square bishop can just roam around on its squares. The white square bishop can do its thing. Not much progress made for either side.
Yeah, this looks like one of those opposite color bishop endings that just, well, fizzled out into a draw. But in my opinion, I think there's still some play in this game. I think we're going to be coming back to this, no?
There's some very minimal play. White is the only one with a chance to win just because it's up material. But no, I just think that it's going to peter out very quickly into a draw.
Right. And Lawrence, what are your thoughts?
Well, we've had a result, ladies and gentlemen, the game of the day, the story of the day. Jeffrey Zhang, he had an amazing start, 3 out of 3, beating 2 grandmasters on the way. Unfortunately, he came across a force that he couldn't defeat in the name of Wesley So, the top seed of the tournament. He won. It was quite a smooth game in the end. Wesley managed to just grind his young opponent out, won a pawn, converted the endgame. That's what you do when you're a 2750 player, almost a top 10 player in the world. And that means that Wesley moves to 3.5 out of 4. Young Jeffrey, he's on 3 out of 4. But you know what? He's got a great chance at making his Grandmaster norm in this tournament if he doesn't make it to Millionaire Monday. And I'm sure that he's going to make the title very, very soon. So a lot of positive news in any case for the US.
Well, Jeffrey Zhang certainly can't be too disappointed with a loss against the great Philippine Grandmaster Wesley So, especially after beating 2 Grandmasters on the way to that loss. I think Jeffrey certainly is on his way to at least a Grandmaster norm and perhaps even a shot at one of the top prizes.
Yeah, he's not out of the running. Just because he lost this one game, he's in a pack of a lot of Grandmasters. He's still going to be the underdog because he's only an international master, slightly lower rated in the competition, but he's coming from the mountaintop. Now he's dropped down back to earth a little bit, but he'll still be playing tough people. He's a tough competitor himself. If he keeps on coming out with his hoodie and his swagger, I think he can take care of business and at least compete going into Sunday for Millionaire Monday.
And I would say that a few of the Grandmasters might be a little bit afraid of young Jeffrey, seeing his well, short track record here at the Millionaire Chess Open. They see that he's capable of pretty much anything. Unpredictable, young player, sharp tactician, unpredictable openings. Anything can happen. I certainly wouldn't want to face him in the next few rounds. Well, with that, let's have a look at the guy on screen, Alexander Lenderman.
Yeah, he's continued to attempt to make progress, and I use that word attempt because he's not making any. He's going back and forth. Both players are, kind of probably a little bit tired, but Lenderman's the only one with winning chances up a pawn, but it's just not enough here. Alex Lenderman will play this all night, but he should maybe kiss this win goodnight because it will fizzle out to a draw without much effort from Carlos Matamoros. So both players, I believe, after this, will go up to 3.5 out of 4, leaving Yang Yu as the only 4-0 undefeated player.
Really, Robert? What about if Black tries to push slowly with h5, then moving the rook over to the a file, then coming down slowly?
Yeah, it's definitely possible to make this slow progress, but I think the numbers on screen are way too high for Black. I don't even comprehend why it says that absolutely large number, 94% chance of Black winning. I agree that 100% Black is the only one who can win this game, but I really don't think it's that high. I think that given the position of, I just don't see if White just keeps moving his knight around back and forth, it's hard for me to see how Black makes too much progress without trading off a bunch of pieces.
Well, I think we're going to have to go back to this game, Robert, because Alexander is going to press there. I see h5, kicking that knight on g3 over to e4, h4, maybe bringing the king to h5. Let's go back to this because we actually have a result here with Dave. Let's go to his game. Dave against the other veteran of the U.S. chess circuit, Shabalov. Let's see, how did they play? They made a draw,
yeah, just after the
predicted.
position we were talking
yes.
about. He made the move queen f2, and they agreed on a draw. Now, other players are fighting it out, duking it out for that very last ounce of hope. But as I said, this game was very much a draw with the opposite colored bishops. There was no realistic hope of either side achieving a victory. They're conserving energy. There's no point in playing well into the night, maybe even past midnight. So for them, it makes sense, given the tournament standings, given their position, especially for Alexander Shabalov. He had 2.5 out of 3. Alexei Dreyev only a 2 out of 3. The highest rated 2, but the lowest rated 2.5, which spells trouble for Dreyev. I don't think his chances are very good. He's kind of distancing himself on the negative side from the pack that's chasing for Millionaire Monday.
Yeah, well, I think that Dreyev has an extremely interesting career. I mean, he's one of those ex-Russian players who have just had an excellent start as a youngster, a lot of expectation on him. And, he just didn't achieve all that was expected of him. So that surely has had some play psychologically for his play. And perhaps the Millionaire Chess Open has finished for him. Well, it's way too early to call that. Meanwhile, on screen, looks like we have a slight controversy. We're not quite sure what's happening, but we can see the tournament directors, the arbiters, talking a little bit. Do you know what's going on, Lawrence?
Yes, absolutely I do. I'm telepathic, and actually that's going to be my next job. I just let everybody know. I'm not going to make the next round. I'm actually going to be reading everybody's hands at the poker downstairs. No, I don't know what's going on. Remember, this tournament, with such prizes on the line, the tournament arbiters, the people really who are refereeing the matches, have got a big responsibility to make sure everything's going right. I'm not sure exactly what's going on at the moment. I'm sure they'll figure it out. What I would like to do is just quickly shoot over to another game, which will end shortly. Ray Robson, again, was Black against Christian Kurilla. We saw how Robert was analyzing that before. This is totally over for Kurilla. All Ray needs to do in the given position is play the move pawn to f5. This cuts the defense of the bishop down this diagonal here. The knight can just capture this pawn. And the problem White has is that when it's king, knight, and 2 pawns against king and bishop, it's a theoretical win. Were Black to only have one of those pawns, he would be able to survive because you can sacrifice the bishop a lot of the time for that pawn, and king and knight versus king is just a theoretical draw. But in this position, I think f5 is quite simple, especially as well given the fact that Black's king is so close to the pawns. Not completely trivial, but I'm pretty certain that Ray's going to come through on that one. And just out the corner of my eye as well, very interesting game, Shankland-Felgeier. I'm absolutely baffled at how this game has really played out. Felgeier missed a win earlier on. In fact, if we just go to the position, it was around here, I believe, when he played the move knight to b4 on move 29. If he had just taken this knight off and moved his rook down, threatening this bishop, the bishop moves, and then rook takes bishop here, bang, queen takes f3, bishop f4, that's game over, and there was nothing that White can do. Knight b4 was still good enough for a really big advantage, but it could be tiredness, could be a whole host of factors. We see him in the green t-shirt there. They both must be exhausted, actually. But the truth is, he's played really awful. And in the current position, well, it looks as though he's just about holding for a draw, but when he finds out that knight takes c3, 1 in 2 moves, he's going to be sick to his stomach.
Well, the Argentinian Grandmaster must be, well, definitely a bit more than disappointed with his play. He's certainly let go of the advantage as we saw it. Well, a winning tactic and then a big advantage, and now just slightly worse. Certainly can't be too happy with his position. Robert, what are some other games that are nearing the ends of this very exciting round?
Yeah, there aren't that many games left. Most games are over. We've seen some decisive results. We've seen a whole number of draws. And one game that I think is nearing towards a draw is Varuzhin Akobian and Gregory Kaidanov. There's been a back-and-forth battle. Early on, I stressed Kaidanov's advantage. He had the dark square. Bishop for black should have been traded off to give white a huge edge. It didn't happen. And from there, it looks like the position is pretty equal. Both sides have 3 pawns and a queen, and both kings are not very well protected. So in these types of positions, it is just for each side to give a bunch of checks, hope that the king can't run anywhere. And white's king definitely has no cover. There's nowhere for it to go. So black, if he wants, can just make a draw immediately by just giving a bunch of checks, forcing the issue. And the statistics show 50% each. This game is going to end in the move I made blunders a queen, unfortunately, because I'm not playing, so I don't have to make the best moves. But just simply queen d3 check, not blundering the queen, allows equality to be maintained, which means a draw will shortly ensue.
That's right, and I think that these players would be pretty satisfied with the draw. Perhaps Gregory Kaidanov slightly not the player he used to be, and slightly worse than Varuz Akobian. And Akobian probably happy with the draw with black. Yes. Especially given that we analyzed it before. He was slightly worse, is that right?
Yeah, he was more than just slightly worse. He was pretty significantly worse. And coming into a game playing black against a strong grandmaster such as Kaidanov, you're happy going into it with that result. At some point, the tables turned, and Var looked like he might be getting some sort of initiative, but it wasn't enough. We analyzed some of the lines. It just really looked like equality was maintained throughout. And after blowing his advantage, it was all drawn from there.
Right. Now, before we get to Lawrence for some thoughts, let's remind everybody that we're going to be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time for round 5 of the Millionaire Chess Open. Lawrence.
Yes, well, the action is coming to a close today. We've had an amazing day once again, full of upset, full of great results for some of the young players in the tournament, specifically Jeffrey Zhang. Earlier today, he beat another grandmaster. Unfortunately, in this round, couldn't overcome the huge task of beating Wesley So. That said, he's having a great tournament. We have at the top, and he was one of my pre-tournament favorites, Yang Yi Yu. He is up there on a perfect score. We see Ruben Felgeier. He's going to be very disappointed with the way he threw that position away. Just goes to show how tough this game is on the mind, especially when you're tired. It's been really full of action. I've been absolutely delighted to be here, cover the rounds. Tomorrow, it's going to start getting really serious because 2 games will mean that we get to round 6, and by the end of tomorrow's action, we're really going to know who are the favorites to enter that Millionaire Monday pool where they're going to be fighting out for 100,000. So can't wait to get there. Been just a great day, and I hope you've enjoyed the action.
Thank you, Lawrence. I think today is pretty much a decisive round to see who's going to, well, dividing the top from the bottom, and who's going to fight for that Millionaire Monday. But as you said, Lawrence, tomorrow is going to be extremely critical to decide that. Robert, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I think you summed it up very well. We entered today with 21 players at 2-0 in the open session. Coming into the fourth round, we only had 6 people 3-0. Now it looks like we only have 1 person at a perfect 4-0. As we can see, the 2 rounds a day is wearing on people. They're getting tired. It's forcing them into maybe some early draws. But the top player in the tournament right now is Yang Yi Yu. He's playing excellent chess. He's very clearly the player to beat, and everybody should be worried about playing him. And there's a reason he sits atop the standings at a perfect 4-0.
And there's a high probability that he will be the only player tomorrow on the perfect score of 4 out of 4, unless, of course, Alexander Lenderman wins this position with black. But that looks like it might fizzle out into a draw, but he's going to be playing all night for that point because every half point counts here at the Millionaire Chess Open. And with that, we are going to say good night, and we are going to see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. for round 5 of the Millionaire Chess Open. My name is Ariane Keeley, and this is Grandmaster Robert Hess. We can't wait until the round tomorrow. See you then.